You know what? Also, we cannot talk about my dick in this episode. We just cut the whole story.
No, it was so startling.
I think I just made the intro. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Creature Popcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Lindsay.
Today, folks, you know it had to happen. We're wrapping up Wormuary. Every year, this time-honored tradition, you all come here to the Creature Popcast to celebrate worms in cinema. We started Wormuary with big worms and trimmers, and then dealt with fast little space worms and Night of the Creeps. And today we're going to close out Wormuary with a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B in 1998's Dare to Say Yes to Drugs manifesto, The Faculty. I'm starting to write these fucking intros. This is written by Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream. You do.
I do?
He wrote
Okay.
Scream. He wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay.
He
That makes sense.
became such the big splash for Scream that they just made him crank out like everything. He was supposed to direct this, but then he wanted to do Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which we haven't seen.
I have seen.
I've seen
Okay.
Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
It's
Yeah. I've seen it a million years ago.
it might be a future
Yeah.
episode. I've never seen it, and it's also kind of a body snatcher type flick. No?
It's less horror, more suspense. It's more of a sort of like a jawbreaker.
Oh, which another movie I haven't
I
seen.
have that on
Y'all
the
are gonna.
list.
I know.
Oh my god.
I love
Lindsay-
Jawbreaker.
Lindsay has gotten so mad at me for not seeing Jawbreaker. And it was written by Kevin Williamson, which I have some questions for him later in this movie. And then directed by Robert Rodriguez. I love his stuff. This is really like the very narrow band of his spectrum that I like the most. On the one side, it's like green screen CGI kids movies. And on the other side, it's a bunch of dudes running around with literal guns for dicks.
Oh yeah, because Robert Rodriguez did those Spy Kids movies,
Yes.
right? That's so crazy to me.
And Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Yeah.
All of that shit. And then over here, it's just like everyone has a gun, like in their pocket, in their pants and whatever, and they're all just shooting like crazy. This one is kind of like probably the best of his stuff. But man, it was a bumpy road. So go ahead and start taking us down that road, Lindsay.
Okay. Well, so fun little memory lane thing. It started out with The Offspring.
Yep.
Yeah. Loved
First
it.
note,
Yeah.
open with a little Offspring.
Yeah. I loved it. I was like, oh, I'm back in high school. Just
Yep.
like put me right there because I was in high school when this movie came out.
I saw the soundtrack on the Wikipedia page, and it is like
Yeah, it's
90s as fuck.
Yeah.
So I've not seen it, but I remember when it came out, but I was probably either, if it's 98, 10 or 11.
Right.
So I was a little too young to see it, but I remember kind of wanting to see it because like Elijah Wood,
The
Yeah.
cast
Josh
is
Hartnett,
stacked.
Huge.
like
yeah.
everybody, and Clea Duvall's in this
Yep.
as
Clea
well.
Duvall.
Yeah, which I didn't realize yet, but I had a crush on her.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that till I was older. But yeah, I was like, I think I wanted to see it, and then the time passed when it was appropriate for me to see it, and then now I never
Yeah.
have. So
Right.
tell me about my high school crushes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, it's great. And even the faculty is all like,
It's
this
stacked, yeah.
cast is crazy.
So speaking of cast, I didn't bother looking any names I didn't know, and I
got
might give you references of where I saw them, and you have to fill the names in if you
Yeah,
know it.
I got it. I
Again.
I have more actor names in here than character names.
I know. Well, no, I wrote all of it down. So
Well, they
for
get
the most part.
shitty fucking character title cards in this.
I know, and that's what made it easy. So
Anyway,
the movie opens up with football practice, and coach is yelling at kids, and it's the guy from the X-Files that replaced Mulder.
his name's Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
He's the T-1000 liquid Terminator.
Yes, Terminator. Yeah.
He is a total anger management
Yeah.
freakazoid fucko coach in this.
Yeah, so we meet Stan without his title card yet when the coach is yelling at him to be better or get off the team or whatever. And then he starts like throws over a bench full of Gatorade. He starts like kicking the sprinkler.
he
He's
picks a fight
so
with a
mad.
sprinkler?
Yeah,
Who is Stan? Who's playing Stan?
just some football player.
Stan will be a main character. For whatever reason, some of the characters are introduced and it takes a pause and goes, whoom, and it says their name on
Yeah.
the screen.
We'll
and then
get back
sometimes,
to Stan.
Like in Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah. Yes.
Sure.
Yes,
Or like-
just like in Can't Hardly Wait.
like any Guy Ritchie movie, where it pauses and like shows their name. But then it's uneven because some of the characters have had 2 or 3 scenes before their name pops up.
Correct.
So it's kind of a jumble.
That's true.
Right now, this is an actor.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, I have it here. He's probably the least known person
Yeah, I
for
would agree
me.
with that.
His name is Sean Hattasey. I don't
He
know.
just
him
showed
from
up in that ER show. What is it with Noah Wiley? What's his name?
Oh, the pit.
The pit. Yeah, he just showed up in the pit. I'm like,
Don't-
hey, I'm about to watch the faculty.
I do not like being put on microphone as if I know these shitty shows you watch.
Of course you do. You pay attention to social
Anyway.
media.
Sean, as Stan, also is introduced on this football field with Usher.
With Usher, yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, Usher's going to be in this movie. He's not. He's hardly in this movie
He's
at
a
all.
very
Well,
big
that's
character.
that's
Yeah.
the same thing that he did in She's All That.
Okay,
He's just barely. Usher was just like
I feel like
barely
maybe
in things.
Usher like popped up and like, I'm going to act. And everyone's like, no, you're not. And
He
so
said
just
you can have a
didn't make
little.
it.
Okay, the coach is kicking at a sprinkler, and then someone walks up and he looks at them and, like, hey, what are you doing here? And then it fades to black.
Yeah.
So then we are later at a teacher budget meeting, and basically nobody gets money for anything except for football.
Right.
This is a football town. So
It's a very Friday Night Lights kind of situation.
Yeah.
They don't get computers. They don't get a musical. They don't get a field trip to New York.
No.
But the football team's going to get whatever it wants.
Yep.
Because that's what the board wants and that's what the families want.
Right. So basically, and then so Miss Drake, who is our principal.
Yeah. She's Baby Newirth, who, yeah, her name's Baby.
I love it.
She's
like Bebe's kids.
She's Lilith in Cheers, the wife of Frasier.
She is.
Yeah.
She's
Just,
great.
just drop all this information.
Well,
out
I'm
there.
just
Yeah.
this is gonna be a fun game of like 1,000 people in this movie.
Yeah, there is 1,000 people in this movie. I mean, it does help that it aired 27 years ago, and a lot of these people made big careers. So
Yeah, I mean,
Since it came on.
I just said she's from
Cheers.
so
Well, yeah.
she hasn't done.
She already had one at the time. Okay. Anyways, Miss Drake is the principal, and she, after the meeting, she forgot her keys and has to go back into the school. And then the coach scares her in the office, and he's being super weird and asking for a pencil and telling her how pretty she is. And she frustratingly like gives him a pencil and tells him to sleep it off because she's like, "You're drunk. Get the fuck out of here," And then he shoves the pencil through her hand, right through, and she's freaking out. And then he says, "I always wanted to do that."
Right.
So she takes her keys and rakes him across the face.
Across his face. She
And then she
fights
runs
back.
off.
She does a good job at fighting back.
Yeah. So, and then he chases her. And she rakes a bottle on his face. And then she runs for the exit. But the exit's like chained shut. And the drama teacher's on the other side saying that she forgot her grade book or something. And then Miss Drake has to go back and get her keys. Because also the drama
dropped the
teacher
keys.
doesn't have her keys either.
This scene could be tightened up a little bit.
Sure.
Essentially, she gets her keys, does a real scared, like, because Robert Patrick's
Yeah.
coach is like standing in the shadows, like all scary, and then starts
Yep.
Terminator running at her.
Right.
Because the dude can't fucking not Terminator runs. It's
Right.
just scary. He has to do it in every movie. She gets to the other side in the last second.
Yep. Well, at some point in the scuffle, she picked up scissors.
Yeah, she's got some scissors.
So she gets some scissors. She's outside. She's fumbling the slick blood to get the door locked, and she gets it shut. But then she turns around, and the drama teacher stabs her with the scissors.
Yeah, picks up the scissors and stabs her.
Yeah, and she
then-
says, "I always wanted to do that."
which I thought was going to be some sort of running gag with
But
it,
it was-
but
that
it
was the
never
end.
said again.
But then we get Splash.
Title
the faculty.
card, the faculty.
That was the
So
beginning.
everybody hates the principal.
I guess so. Nobody gets any money for anything, so maybe they hate her. I mean, like,
Well,
we learn later, she won't even let them turn the air conditioning unit on in the teacher's lounge. You know, like, it's pretty bad. So it's the next day, and we're outside before school, and the first thing I did was look up, is this the same high school as Scream? But it was,
No.
it's outside of Austin. It wasn't the same building, so.
Well, I see. The actual. So
Yeah,
Scream
the
is
actual
obviously
building.
is set in California.
Yeah.
This one is set in Ohio. It's called Harrington High.
Yes, but the building was actually outside Austin.
Yes.
Yeah. So I looked it up because
It actually looks like Texas in the movie. It does not look like the Midwest. It looks like you're just
little
on the
warmer.
outskirts of a desert. in this.
Okay, so we're outside, and then we see a car, and I don't know if it's
We
a
don't
Charger or a
have
Mustang.
it's not a car. It's a 1970 Pontiac GTO. It's
See,
a
I don't- it's a
beautiful,
car.
beautiful vehicle.
So I was wrong about either
I'm not.
one. It
I'm
is
not
pretty.
a gearhead, but when it comes to like 60s, 70s Pontiacs,
I know,
AMCs,
I know,
whatever,
I know.
Chargers, you know me.
I know.
This is a pretty car.
It is a pretty car. So Josh Hartnett gets out. He's got a weird cowlick on the side of his head.
Terrible hair.
Terrible hair.
Yeah, it's all like brushed forward, and
But
wasn't
then
he
he
doing
sticks
like,
out in all places.
Was he supposed to be like the artistic one? Aren't the like sleeves of his shirt like down his hand?
Well, that's very
that's
90s.
how I
That's
used
not,
to.
yeah.
That's how I used to dress.
Yeah.
So
the artistic one.
sure. So his character's name is Zeke, and one of the things that this whole movie is attempting to do, it's kind of like Temu Breakfast Club, it's kind of like Wish
Yes.
John Hughes, where
Yeah.
it's like, we're going to take a character and you're going to look at him and pigeonhole him,
Yep,
and then we're going to
immediately.
flip it on its head and be like, he's got layers
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Josh Hartnett's character, I believe,
He's a drug dealer.
Yeah, he's a drug dealer. He's a burnout.
Yeah, he's
but
doing his senior year a second time.
but he's a fucking genius.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's his little, like, surprise, this guy knows everything.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so he has a fistful of pens, and then we see Elijah Wood is on the bus. He gets elbowed in the face, knocked on the ground. His name is splash card for Casey. Then we
He's
see
the nerd.
he's
the
the
nerd.
poor nerd. And then we see Clea Duvall is the
Goth
girl. Her splash card is Stokely.
Stokely is her name.
Yeah, and then we see the pretty cheerleader girl, Delilah.
That's Jordana Brewster.
Jordana Brewster.
Is
And then
the pretty cheerleader girl.
And then we see the quarterback Stan, his splash card.
Right.
And then poor Casey gets his flagpole rammed on his balls. Like, he's like basically a whole bunch of guys pick him up and then just walk a flagpole in the middle of his leg.
I gotta say, there's a couple things in this movie
Bullying
that
is
that
bad.
I'm like, oh, the gay panic in it is a little weird. The whole it's revealed a little bit later that Stokely is pretending to be a lesbian in
Right.
order to, like,
Get people to leave her alone.
for people to leave her alone, because that's such a weird outcasty thing.
She's not a real lesbian. Oh, I'm disappointed.
I mean, 1998 in high school, I was 16 in 1998, so I remember it being pretty weird. You got bullied if you were... I got bullied for having curly hair, for God's sakes.
This is what I'm saying. My point is, at first blush, some of these things are a little like, oh, is this not aging well? This high school is filled with fucking assholes.
Yes.
They are aggravated assault bullies.
Yep.
There is a fender bender in the beginning of this where the two people who get in a little, like, fender bender start fist fighting each other. One of the girls gets dragged out of her car by her hair.
I do always wonder, because I was alive in the 80s barely, but I wasn't in high school. But when you watch 80s movies and the way that they bully each other, you're like, isn't this assault?
This is violence.
I was
Yeah,
like, were
it was
people
fine.
literally just like,
It's
Well,
just
that's-
kids roughhousing. It wasn't a
and
thing.
I'm like,
that's what I was
that's
about to
fucking serious.
There is a running gag in this movie of a couple
Yes.
in a fight where the young woman is open-handedly slapping this boy across
Calling
the
him pussy
face,
and-
calling him pussy
yeah.
over and over again
Yeah.
as a joke. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I would hide any way I could in this high school as well.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if, like,
It was brutal.
being part of being gay would make you more invisible because it would probably make you a target.
Yeah.
It would
But-
make her a target, but also people probably would leave her alone, sort of. I don't know.
Also,
I mean, technically,
how do you
I've
think
hidden a book in high school.
Clea
People leave me
Duvall,
alone.
a noted LGBTQ queen, felt about playing a character who was pretending to be a lesbian to add to her outcast
And-
aura.
Yeah, it is a choice. And one of the many, hey, Kevin Williamson, I have questions.
Yeah.
I have a bigger question coming up later, Kevin.
Anyway, so then back to what we're doing. So after the flagpole scene, we see the new girl, Mary Beth Louise
Beth.
Hutchison, because she has to say her entire name, but her splash card only says Mary Beth.
Yeah, this is played by Laura Harris. She's not been in a
ton of
of
things.
stuff that I know of, but I love the show Dead Like Me, and she was one of the main characters on that for a while.
Yeah.
She's from Atlanta. She's got a little southern accent. She's new, and she's like the innocent
Yes.
babe in this terrible woods.
Right. So then we finally get Zeke's splash card, and he's selling fake IDs and the drug he calls scat inside the pens that he's carrying around. And he's selling them to what's his name?
I say, boo, Danny Masterson side.
But it's also the little kid from
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused. Yeah.
The one that they're always chasing to like paddle.
Yeah.
Yes, the main guy with the long hair. He
Yeah.
tries
Of
to,
the two layers of kids, he's the younger one
Yeah.
who just graduated middle school going into, I don't know.
Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
So yeah, Danny Masterson shows up. It
Yep.
sucks to
Yep.
see him, but also he's hardly in
He's
this at all.
hardly in it, yeah. He has
So,
like 2 scenes. That's
Because
it.
this is such an important plot part of this movie, I'm just going to describe this. The pins that Zeke creates as his own recipe are like clear Bic pins.
Yeah, the dollar store Big Pens.
With
yeah.
all the stuff pulled out of the inside, filled with powder, and the cap on the bottom, so you could take it off and like stick it to your nose and use it as a straw to sniff up this white powder.
Yep.
Which, like you said, he calls scat.
Which technically he would still have to also like stop
know.
up the other side because there's a hole in the top of
Yeah.
the cap for choking hazards. Whatever.
No, none of it. In practice, it doesn't make sense.
And then I wrote a note here. Oh my God, it's only been 11 minutes.
I'm like,
It's been a half an hour of this podcast.
what is scat? Is it cocaine? Is it
We'll
we'll
get
get
to
there.
Crack?
We'll get
it.
there.
It is resolved.
Okay,
Is
so
it baking soda? I'm gonna laugh
Nope.
if it's baking soda.
You're closer though.
Okay, so then we're in the faculty lounge, and Selma Hayek walks in, and she's a nurse, and she has a cold.
Selma Hayek is the nurse.
Jon Stewart
is
a science teacher, and he's creeping on her.
I sort of remember that.
with a terrible goatee.
Oh my god, the goatee is so bad.
There's so many bad goatees.
Oh my god, it's so bad. But he's a science teacher, and he's creeping on the nurse, saying like, I called you and you didn't answer, shit like that, whatever. Famke Jensen is the mousy English teacher.
Yeah, she's so timid in the beginning of this, it pisses me clear off.
Yeah, she is.
You're not a high school teacher if you're this timid.
And then the coach is just standing in the corner drinking from a water cooler over and over and over.
He's very thirsty.
And we see how the air unit says don't use, whatever.
Yeah.
So the drama teacher walks in and she suddenly has a glow up. She's got confidence and her hair's all nice and whatever.
And she kind of communes with
the coach a little bit.
We both know that they're murderers at this point.
Yeah. Swapped. So then we're back in the hall and we're with Stan and he's going to quit football. He's telling his girlfriend Delilah that he's going to quit football and she is not on board because she is the star cheerleader and they have a hierarchy and a path that they're supposed to follow and she basically belittles him and says that he's not smart and...
Come on, Stan.
Yeah.
She is the worst.
You can quit football. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a moment later in this that I really remember and took to heart when I was younger. But Delilah is a god-awful character.
She's a god-awful character.
She's going to suffer a terrible death.
No.
I mean, she...
No.
This movie fucking sucks.
None of our characters
no
die.
courage.
Justice.
It has no courage to kill in this movie.
Nobody dies. Even
Very few.
people who lose their entire heads don't die.
I almost woke you up last night because I was like, how the fuck does Famke just get to walk around at the end of this movie?
But did you notice she has a scarf on her neck?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. That's fun.
We need to talk about it when we get there.
The girl with the green scarf. You remember that story?
Yeah.
You never take the scarf
Oh
off,
my
and
god,
head
yeah, I
falls
forgot
off.
about that story. Okay, anyways, so history teacher's a drunk. We just needed to see him do that, I guess.
He's my favorite teacher in this, Mr. Tate.
Yeah.
He's a grumpy drunk that hates his fucking place.
Yeah.
He's
Doesn't
trying to
care.
take these kids to New York. He doesn't get what he wants, and so he's like, fuck it, I'm just getting drunk during the day.
Yep. So Marybeth is at lunch. Marybeth is trying to make friends with Stokely, but then Delilah interrupts and calls Stokely a lesbian, which caused...
Yeah, she's a homophobic asshole. She's terrible to her
horrible.
boyfriend. She's the worst.
Casey's eating alone in the bleachers, and he finds a weird dried up thing on the field.
Yep.
The coach is creeping him out. He's like, what are you doing here? All that shit. And then he's like... I don't remember exactly what he said, the coach said, but the Casey's response was, I don't think a person should run unless they're being chased.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said something implying that you can be chased a lot somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, he's just being,
He's
the coach
being
is
really
being
creepy.
a weird creep. But honestly, it's kind of vaguely better than he was before he was possessed.
Right. I mean, this whole series of scenes now is these students are starting to notice that there's creepiness going on. Because now the drama teacher is giving Stokely really creepy vibes. And then this is where Stokely tells that she's...
This builds to an amazing scene where they're like, oh, holy shit. We'll get there. But there is a ramp up to this movie where it's very exciting going with these 6 characters going, holy shit, you're the only ones left.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the best... To execute that is so necessary in a movie like this where people look around and go, oh... Not only is something wrong, but we are fucking surrounded.
Right. So Stokely is reading science fiction.
Yep.
And that's part of how Marybeth is trying to talk to her. And this is where the whole part about she's not really a lesbian and comes
This
out.
is Kevin Williamson's thing.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, Stokely is to science fiction what Jamie Kennedy is to horror and Scream. It has to be that kind of I know what's going on because I'm a connoisseur of this genre stuff. It's kind of tired and absolutely is not necessary in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot how, especially with Williamson's movies, how he has this need to be fucking meta.
Yeah.
When it works great with Scream. But in this movie, I'm like, I don't need an explanation for why maybe all science fiction was preparing us for actual alien invasions. Just shut the fuck up. It's just a worm from the sky.
Yeah.
It's Wormuary, everybody. Worms come from the sky.
So Casey has brought what he found to the science teacher. And they're investigating under the microscope. And he says something about it only exists in squid and octopi. But then they're like, but this is Ohio. And they're like, yeah, that's the weird part. And then they say it's a pelagic organism. And of course, then you got the suddenly smart Zeke yelling. They're like, what does that mean? He's like, sea dwelling. He answers their question. Yeah. So the teacher thinks it's a new species and he's freaking out.
And he's going to take it to the college or something like that later. He's going to send it up the line to see if it's a new discovery, a new species.
Yeah. So Usher, he says a comment to Stokely about maybe it's from your planet, and she says, blow me, and pushes him, and he knocks over the beaker of water onto the creature, and it starts to move.
Water resuscitates it.
Yep. The teacher takes it to a conveniently empty fish tank. And
God, I love that that's your problem. I love that that's a problem with this movie.
I'm like, why is there an empty fish tank with rocks and like fake plants, but it's just no fish in it?
Maybe the fish died that morning.
Well, maybe, I guess. But there's like no filters or either.
Babe,
It's just
this scene is so fucking dumb.
Sorry.
It doesn't matter that the aquarium is empty because Jon Stewart, as a goddamn science teacher, just does something so stupid.
He just dumps it in the fish tank.
Yeah.
Well-
And then the little vines come out.
And this is
Puts
cool.
it in there.
So it's now like a translucent kind of like
Sluggy
tadpole thing, but it
Yeah.
has all of these like needle thin red tendrils
Yes.
that come out of it.
Yes.
And Jon Stewart just
He
goes,
puts on a glove, and they're like, what are you doing? And
He
he's
puts on
like,
a-
I want to feel it. It's temperature changed. And I'm like, hey, how'd you know it's temperature changed? Because there's not any devices on this
And
fish
two,
tank.
don't touch the tendril worm. That clearly has, he gets bit by, oh wait, first
Well, first, he has his hand in there, and it replicates. So
Yeah.
it divides in two. It becomes two worms.
it becomes two worms now.
Yeah. And he's like, oh my God, they can replicate. And then one of them bites him.
And one bites it,
And it has teeth.
Elijah Wood goes, where did it get teeth? And I'm like, bitch, everything has teeth.
Yeah.
Why would you think it didn't have teeth? So Jon Stewart's bleeding hand, he's like, oh, fuck, and whatever.
And then Stokely puts her hand on the tank.
This is cool.
Yeah.
Stokely puts her hand up on the tank, and the worm gets there, and all of its tendrils match her
It's like feeling her
hand
body heat.
completely.
Yeah.
So it makes like a little like replicate hand out of its tentacles. Very cool looking.
So then we go to a scene where Stan actually quits football to the coach, and the coach is fine about it. This is the anger-ridden person is just like, oh, cool. Like, if this is not your path, go on whatever you need to do. And he is just super weirded out. Okay.
The coach he should have always been.
Yeah, probably.
He
Yeah.
literally says something like, if I denied you this thing going on with you, what kind of human would I be? So he's
Yeah.
like a better person.
He is a better
as an
person.
alien.
That's true.
Yeah, I was like, are these things kind of nice? Or they're just trying to figure out how to be humans?
Exactly.
Yes.
They just want, we'll get there,
We'll
but
get
they
there,
kind of
yeah.
just want more efficient. We're messy.
Yeah.
And they want to be more, it's beautiful being united.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's a locker scene, right, where Casey's about to be picked on by Usher and his crony, but then Stan kind of distracts him. And then we go into a shower scene where Stan is in the showers.
And this
hears-
shower scene absolutely triggered me because these were exactly the showers. in
Oh,
my high
really?
school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then...
Got four naked boys standing around because they're just a post with four shower
yeah,
heads.
you have to look at each other
And
while
so
you
you
shower.
gotta just
Did you take showers?
Hell fucking no.
At our school, in the girls' locker room, were they used as storage when
okay,
you were
were
there?
you at the same high school I went to, or did you go to the newer building?
No.
Okay.
I went to the old one. Were they used for storage when you were there? Like this, I will say the shower stalls,
No.
I think, were
What-
sort of like walled
It was just
off.
a wall, and
Yeah.
well, no, it was just like a room this size, and then showers around the outside edges. But no, it was still optional to take a shower. They didn't force us, but people,
Yeah, they never
Okay.
forced us. But when I went to school there, they were using it to store like chalkboards and whiteboards
I
were like
believe it,
rolled
'cause
in there.
nobody would
because they
take
were
showers.
Like, nobody's taking the shower.
Here's my traumatic story. The high school I went to had a pool. Swimming was part of your
we
PE.
didn't have a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Count yourself lucky.
Oh, I do.
Swimming was a section in PE. So, like, you had to wrestle for a semester, you had to swim for a semester. They gave you little, like, blue, shitty, reusable, like, Speedo things.
Speedos, not even trunks.
They're baggy Speedos, kind of. Not that baggy. Not baggy enough for me. And then after swim class, you had to stand in a line with all the boys. The coach was at the front of the line with a laundry bag, and you had to take off your shit and put them in the
Oh
laundry
my
bag and walk
God.
over to the shower.
Oh my God.
It was 90s, and I'm going to say maybe borderline abuse.
It's like early 90s for you.
Yes. It
You
was
graduated in 96.
93 or 94 is
Okay.
when I had that PE.
Mortified.
Mortifying. Everyone's little ding dong was in display, and guess what? They weren't nice about it. No one was like looking real good. I don't,
You just gave away your last name.
Oh shit!
Looking real good, bro.
Yeah, just bleep it out.
I'm really happy with bleeps also.
Yeah,
I
just
think-
bleep it out.
You know what? Also, we cannot talk about my dick in this episode. We can cut the whole story.
No, it was so startling.
Oh my God. Okay, so Stan is in the showers alone, and he hears a noise, and then he yells out, "Hey, Casey, is that you?" Because Casey was still in the locker room last time he saw. And then suddenly an old lady teacher, which we never really introduced to her, but old lady teacher is there and taking off her clothes, saying she just doesn't know what's happening. And she's like, they want everyone. And then Stan yells, "Yo, Casey, get help," and tries to comfort her. And then her scalp just falls off.
Just peels off of her head.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's clearly like melting or something.
Yeah, because like she has all these blemishes,
Yeah.
like her skin is like falling off her face.
Stan's so nice.
He is nice. Yeah, I mean, he's naked in the shower, comforting an old lady, taking off her clothes.
Stan is very much the best person in
Yes,
this
Because
movie.
he stopped
He is.
Casey from being bullied.
Yep.
And then when an old woman came in and started getting naked, he wasn't like, ew, creepy. He was like, oh my God, she's having a health emergency.
Yep.
He's not actively his presence stops Casey from getting bullied, but he gets high fives from his buddies who he's nervous because he's going to leave the team. Elijah Wood Casey turns to him and goes, "It must blow being you," and he goes, "You have no idea." And it's one of those moments that it's like Casey was kind of being tongue in cheek, and this poor boy is like having issues. He's having a rough time.
So they are in the office after this incident, and the drama teacher tells Stan and Casey that the teacher has cancer and she was going through chemo.
And her scalp fell off?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
it's
they're
sure.
telling him. That's what
Typical.
they're telling.
They're just selling him a
Typical.
whole.
She was really
Chemo
sick.
response.
They thought she would be okay to finish out the semester, but unfortunately that's not true. That's what they're telling him. And then Casey's just sitting on a bench, and he looks out the window, and he sees the coach just outside, standing on the field while the sprinklers are on. And he's just standing there being sprinkled on by the sprinklers in the lawn.
And this is the I hate movies where aliens are allergic to water. I'm looking at you signs because why come to this planet that's all water?
Right?
That
This-
is what John always says.
Yeah, well, it's all water here.
Why would you come here?
There's no water here. This is the
Rains
opposite.
from the sky.
These fucking aliens are needing constant
need water.
moisture.
Yeah, that's why they're always drinking water.
So that explains why they're here.
Yeah.
They're like, this one's got a lot of
And
water.
we are 70% water, so they're just using us. It makes
sense. Yeah. So then it turns out, we go to another scene. It turns out that Casey's on the paper and Delilah is the editor.
Right.
So Casey's got a camera. He's taking pictures. They're looking for a story. So they break into the teacher's lounge looking for a story.
Real quick, I don't know if we want. There's a little scene with Zeke at his car and Famke Janssen.
I have that, but we're not there
Oh,
yet.
no.
Okay, I could have sworn it's just before them going into the
She
teacher's
trying to
lounge.
sleep with him.
No, it's he's a real prick.
I might have decided to not bother with it.
The only reason I bring it up, so basically he's selling shit out of his car. She approaches and he is super smarmy to her, uses her shyness against her, tries to sell her laxatives, and then tries to sell her condoms.
Cherry flavored.
And cherry flavored Magnum condoms. And she's just like, that's so rude. And she walks away and Zeke's mask falls for a second there because he hurt her.
He hurt her.
But what Zeke is selling out of his car to Danny Masterson and the kid from Dazed and Confused are 2 VHS tapes that he goes, Nev Campbell, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they're like, and naked, full frontal, and he sells it to them.
Yeah.
Okay, what the fuck is Kevin Williamson doing? Nev Campbell and Jennifer Love Hewitt are the stars of Scream, and I know what you did last summer, and Zeke is selling nude tapes of his main actresses in his other movies to... And where would there's no
secret sex tapes of these people?
Well, that's the question. Is it a sex tape? There's no movies where they're full front. Kevin Williamson, what the fuck are you doing with this little?
He's just being opportunistic to get his buck, I guess. He's just making things up.
But don't in your movie reference your other actors being sold, their sex tapes being sold. That's fucking creepy.
It was creepy. I mean,
also they're basically children. They're very young women at this point in their career.
They are.
And this is a Weinstein-run Miramax movie.
Is it? Okay.
Everything about it is creeps. It's bro, elbowing shit, and it sucks. It just. Anyway, we can leave all that out. I just got really. I was like, what is this joke?
Yeah. I mean, for me, honestly, when this happened, I just brushed it off as this was what the 90s was like and just went on.
I get that. It's just Kevin Williamson is so meta all the time. He just has never been meta about my character selling sex shit of people, young women I work with. It's gross. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so
Delilah and Casey are breaking into the faculty lounge.
Yes, and they're going through purses and stuff like that, and then they hear talking about each other and people, and I don't know, Casey makes a comment about how Delilah would be, she's a pretty cool person, except for when she's not, I guess.
Right, and it's delivered.
Be pretty cool, except
when you're
such
not
a
being
bitch.
cool.
That's literally
That's literally
the line.
what he said.
He's like, when you're not a huge bitch. And she's
I wrote this movie.
And it's delivered by Elijah Wood, who he delivers it perfectly.
Yeah, he
it's
does.
charming. And they try to make this kind of a cute thing because
Yeah.
Delilah's like, are you hitting on me? Delilah's 4 feet taller than Elijah. Elijah looks like a baby in this movie. So when they start like moving the characters to like this might be a couple, which eventually it is, it's so off.
Yeah.
These two people are not meant to be
No. And it would
kissing each other.
No, it's very strange, but whatever. So they hear some noise and then they rush into the closet. And then the coach and the drama teacher, which I never ever get her name, come in and drink water and splash it on their faces. And then they talk about their takeover plans. And then the nurse comes in. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize anybody else was here.
Selma Hayek comes in. She's still very snuffy and sick. She's clearly not one of them yet.
But then, like, they eye her like, oh, it's time to take over her.
Yep.
And they hold her down while the coach, like, spits a worm into her ear.
He spits the worm into her ear. It's very bloody. And both of when the worm comes out and when the worm goes into her, their whole faces turn into, like, vein networks.
Yeah, there's, like, weird, like, worms all under their skins.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But the entire time, Casey and Delilah are in the closet watching this. Right. And, like, trying not to freak out.
But they're trying not to freak out is interrupted because the corpse of the old teacher's in the closet and falls down. Goonies body in the icebox style.
Yep. So they hear the commotion and they open the door and then the kids make a run for it. And in the hallway, they run into the principal, who we haven't seen since she was murdered.
So here is another thing about it that is a little detail. So Robert Patrick's face got split over by the keys just the night before.
Right.
The lines are there, but it's already healing.
Yeah.
It's almost not there. So these people who are stabbed to death with scissors raked across the face, these bodies are healing pretty fast.
Yeah, they are healing fast. But some of them are healing faster than they should be. If the coach still has scars on his face.
Yeah, they're just lines.
But other people can be stabbed or lose their heads and be healing.
We haven't lost a head yet.
Fine. So they make a run for it. They see the principal. They try to tell her what's going on. And the history teacher shows up, the one who's drunk.
Basically, it's a whole standoff. The nurse comes out,
Yeah.
and now she's like,
She looks
everything's
fine.
fine. You
Yeah,
know?
she's looking good.
And Casey and Delilah aren't fucking having it. They're like,
They're all in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then they decide to take
I
her.
want to sing the High School Musical song.
What?
High School
We're
Musical.
all in this together. It's different.
So
vibe.
they run off, and Casey falls, and Delilah just leaves him.
Yeah, it's at first blush, I'm like, oh, he wasn't supposed to fall. But I rewound it. I think it's a stunt double falling so clearly. I think it was just to separate the two of them.
Yeah, so that is true. We need them separated. So Casey calls the cops. So they come back with his parents, and Christopher McDonald is his dad.
Yeah, Christopher McDonald just shows up in this fucking movie for like a solid.
Not long.
Not long, but it's like he's in it.
Yeah, he's in for like a good 10 minutes.
Like 10 minutes. It's a Christopher McDonald show. Also with a terrible goatee.
Yeah, another one, yes. So the teachers have covered it up. They try to explain to the kids that the nurse had epilepsy.
And there's a resuscitation dummy in the closet. So they keep covering.
They're covering it up, and then Mrs. Drake asks to talk to one of the cops privately while she turns him.
So one of the cops gets turned.
And then she tries to talk to Casey's mom privately, and Casey's like, no, Mom, I just want to go home.
Yep.
I'm done with this. Let's go home. And so Mom and Dad leave with Casey. And then back at home, his parents are just ransacking his room, looking for drugs.
The thing. We have and we get little hints of this for everybody. The parents in this town are also fucking vacant, drunk, gone. Casey's parents are the only ones that we see at home, and this boy saw something scary. It turned out not to be a scary thing. It was a resuscitation doll. And they just, punched the fuck out of it for
they
it.
decided it's drugs.
If they believed the story of that it was like we were resuscitated, why would they be in trouble? You'd be like,
it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, they'd be like, it's okay.
But they're threatening him with a psychologist.
Yep.
They take
They ground him and they take all his stuff, his internet, his phone, everything, his porn,
music, and his porno.
Yeah, they took his boombox. Yeah, and then his porno. Yeah.
What's his porno?
It's just magazines, old school magazines underneath the mattress. and it's a magazine called Boobs.
Yeah, I love it. I didn't even notice that.
Where did they? If they knew he had it the whole time.
Well, the mom is like
under the mattress because Mom probably cleans his room and changes his sheets. So
she just was like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, sure. What are you gonna do?
What if I? Yeah.
I don't want.
If I ran into my kid's porn, I wouldn't even know how to deal with that either.
You'd just be like,
thank God for the digital age.
I know, right? I know.
You're like, please clear your browser history. Thank you.
So they take all his stuff, but this kid somehow has a robot that'll type on his computer and pretend he's working. Like, what the fuck?
He's got a deconstructed Apple computer.
Yeah.
It's just a part of his character that he's
that smart.
The computers are
if
sick.
this movie was a little bit later, he would be the hacker kid. It's just not quite late enough that people had internet in their... First of all, the fact that he has internet in his bedroom in 1998 is crazy to me. But
in Ohio,
you were an adult in 1988. When we were teenagers, we had one computer in the kitchen and everybody shared it.
Yeah,
I had AOL in 96.
We did too, but it was one computer in the kitchen and everybody shared it.
I had one computer also. It was in my fucking room because I lived alone with my mom, and my mom didn't want anything to do with it. And I paid $6,000 for that Macintosh Performa and an Agfa Scanner and $800 for a fucking Adobe Photoshop and a zip drive.
Which lasted all of 2 years before they were obsolete.
Shut up. I love it. I would have a zip drive today. If
You wouldn't.
half of the art I do for this show would fit on one zip drive. Like one image.
One image.
One half of one image.
Yeah, if you kept sending me PNGs, it wouldn't fit at all. I have to resave them smaller.
It was a dark time, ladies and gentlemen. Anywho, let's plug on.
Okay, so he decides to set up this thing to pretend it's working and tries to leave. And he goes outside, and the faculty, he's on the roof, and the faculty are out there on the street,
in shadows.
But then he falls off the roof anyways, and they're right there about to grab him, and then his dad's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Get back inside. His dad's still holding his porno mag.
Yeah, because he was obviously looking at them.
Obviously looking at them.
So he has to go back inside. So now we're next day.
This whole scene could be cut out.
It could have been.
Nothing
It was not
happens.
necessary.
He tries to get out. He doesn't get out. He goes back inside. It's the next day.
It was a cute little funny moment, but it wasn't necessary. I agree.
Anyway.
The next day, Delilah grabs Casey to tell him that they need the cops, and she's got like glasses on. You know, she's like not make-upped up.
She was a very make-up person before. Now apparently, she wore contacts before. Now she has glasses.
Yeah, and
her hair's down. Whatever.
They're commenting on her appearance.
She's still like the most stunningly beautiful like person. Her whole vibe ain't me, but like. The whole like making her like ugly and torn up.
They just put glasses on her and like made her makeup a little less, like more natural looking.
She has a lot of makeup.
Okay, so they need the cops, but Casey already called the cops. They have been taken, and so she decides she's gonna go find Stan and just leaves him alone. So then we're in the faculty lounge now, and we're stocking up on water. It's like a montage of like the Culligan man coming in and putting all the water on the wall and all the cabinets full of bottled water.
There's a whole,
and everybody just drinking
water.
There's
a whole truck that pulls up when they pan into it of like Culligan water truck with like hundreds of those.
And they're just stocking up
tanks.
on water and water. And then they turn the air on because, now they need it. And then we go to a scene with a history teacher saying, like, we are going to do a living history. This is your assignment. And everybody has to write down everybody who's alive in their family. They want to make sure that the aliens are getting everybody. So this is how they do it.
Starting with the people you live with and then your closest relatives.
Yep. So we see Mary Beth come up to Zeke and she asks him what's in the pen, and they're at a locker or something. And she says that she's allergic to aspirin and that whatever's in that pen would probably kill her. She says that after he asks her if she wants some. And then we have this hall scenes where the MacLeod and other people are just walking down the hall, and they see like lines down the hall of kids and lining up to like, because they keep having these announcements going off. These 3 students need to report to the principal's office, and it keeps happening over and over. And they're saying that the nurse is giving ear exams. But the principal is in there with her.
It's a line of like really bored, mad kids going in, and when they come out, they're kind of like taken over. So it's very obvious what's going on here. There is a little moment here where Stokely and Stan have a little meet cute.
Yeah.
Where she's like, why are you quitting the team? Blah, blah, blah. You guys did this and this. And he's like, you follow the games? I wouldn't have expected that. So that's the little flip on her. And he's like, this is the moment with Stan that really like hit me. Is like, I got a D on my test and the teacher turned to an A because of my arm is so good. That was my D. I worked hard for that D. It's this perfect little encapsulation of how he's like, I just want to be left alone to be mediocre or bad at something.
He wants to earn what he's good at or not good at. So in just like, I mean, we're not seeing this right now, but like basically Casey's getting Stokely and Delilah's getting Stan and Mary Beth is talking to Zeke. So
everyone's coupling up.
Yeah, we've partnered up. Some kids are trying to buy all the scat. Mary Beth and Zeke are together, and these same kids. They walk up to him and
Boo,
they're like,
Danny Matheson again.
yeah, we want some scat. So, okay, well, I have this money. And he's like, well, do you have more? And he's like, well, in my car, I have more. And he pulls out a wad of money, and he's like, we want all of it. And he's like kind of weirded out about it.
Has Danny Masterson already been
probably
wormed?
Yes, more than likely.
The movie's telling you, like, they want all this stuff because it's a threat to them.
Yeah, somehow we know that the drug is a threat now because why else are they trying to buy all of it?
They just want to get it out of their possession.
And then the English teacher, Famke Jensen, shows up with Zeke, and she has an attitude change.
Also, big glow up.
Yeah, she has a big glow up. She's all sexy in her red and her black.
No glasses.
No glasses. She basically attacks Zeke verbally, calling like his parents have left him, and
they need to stay away from their bastard mistake.
Yeah, that stuff like that. And she's definitely turned. So she's
Which makes no sense. Why are these aliens fucking with this kid, trying to make him feel bad? It doesn't make...
because they're supposed to be everybody's supposed to be nice and happy, right?
Just turn him into a fucking worm person and move on with your day.
So Casey's found Stokely, and they're talking, and Stokely says it sounds like Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Blah, blah, blah.
And Casey posits that all the science fiction out there is aliens getting us used to the idea of it being make-believe so that when it really happens, no one believes it.
Completely unnecessary garbage that does not need to be in this movie. It's just Wormuary.
Well, and she's like, that was just a copy of the movie The Puppet Masters.
Yes.
You know, so like... And then in a Puppet Masters, they were parasites. You know, they talk about what kind of...
And
pod people and the
finally
parasites.
It clicks, oh yeah, we found a weird worm
parasite
species the other day, just before all this weird shit started happening.
Yeah, so then they go to the science lab to look at the thing that Casey found. And it's missing.
It's gone.
Where did it go? So then we're with Zeke and Mary Beth again, and they've broken into the storeroom because this is where Zeke gets all his chemicals for his drug. And so then
She's like, you borrow it from the storage lab? And he's like, I prefer to call it stealing.
Yeah. And then he does a little flirty thing where he's like, if we get caught here, we just need to tell them we're making out. And then they start to make out.
The making out in this movie sucks so much. None of these people should be kissing any of these other people. It's so awkward that why is Zeke making moves on this little, like,
I don't know.
It just doesn't make sense. It feels like it was required in these movies in the 90s for these teens to make out, and none of it is hot in this at all.
Not at all. So they hear through the vent the other kids, because all four of them are in there now.
We're finally going to get the group together.
Yeah. They hear them talking through the vents, right? I wrote here, fuck you, tit bags. It must have been something that was said.
I don't know why with these details. We did the whole, like, Usher saying blow me to Clea Duvall earlier. I'm like, the dialogue's not scintillating.
It's not good. I must have enjoyed that particular scene.
Like,
but I didn't write any other details.
I believe she calls him a blood fart in the same scene. It's just so bad.
So bad. Anyways, okay. They're back in the science lab, and we're like, why here? Why Ohio? And then they were saying... if
all six of them are now together.
No, we're not. It's only the four of them. And they're like, if you're going to take over the world, would you blow up the White House? This is Casey talking. Or Independence style, or would you sneak in through the back door? That's why Ohio. And then Zeke barges into the science lab, and he's pretending he's like he's sick, or basically reminds me of like Bishop with the alien in his chest shit, you know?
That's a weird part.
I don't know. That's where my brain went.
Okay. Zeke is being an asshole.
He's being an asshole. He's laughing at them.
Alien talk, and he's laughing at them.
So then the science teacher, John Stewart, walks in.
Finally, we get something to bring these assholes together on the same page.
And Zeke actually tells him that Casey thinks it's an alien. And the teacher gets all serious. And he's like closing the blinds and shutting the doors and not letting them leave. It gets violent. Zeke pulls off the paper cutter arm from the paper cutter.
That's my move.
I know. And chips off the teacher's fingers.
So a lot of things happen here that are trying to like set some rules. So they cut off Jon Stewart's fingers with the paper cutter and they crawl away.
Yep.
So, and they also have like red tentacles coming out the stump. Mm-hmm. So I guess every aspect of the body is potentially
they kind of talked about that at some point, but I don't remember what part of the movie we hear about that.
Like, there's something about how they're all connected.
Zeke's garage. So Zeke, as the fingers crawl away, Zeke shoves a pen of scat into Jon Stewart's eye, and then the teacher shoves him and breaks the tank. And so the whole tank, and he's like coated in water, and they're really worried because now they have no weapons because he lost the thing. But then the scat starts to bubble out of his eye. He falls over. Stan throws the paper cutter arm at him, ready to like chop off Jon Stewart's head, but he's already dead.
Yeah, basically whatever scat is dehydrating these things to death.
Yeah. And then Stokely says, isn't this the point where someone says, get the fuck out of here?
I wrote this down too. I hate this fucking line.
Oh, why'd you write it down?
Because I hate the line. It's like, this is the epitome of Kevin Williamson's meta bullshit in a movie. This is usually the point when someone says, let's get the fuck out of here. Let's get the fuck out of here.
That's exactly what happened.
We know we're at a movie. We paid good money for the ticket for this movie.
Yeah, so Casey grabs a jar to take the parasite with him. Everybody's like, hold it together, just go straight to the parking lot. We're all getting in my car.
This is one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
So this is a wonderful walk out of school. The group's together. They're all on the same page. And everyone is looking at them.
Everybody's looking at them.
And there is a bunch of whispering going on while they're walking out. And one of the things is like, saying their names and like, why stand hanging out with those guys?
Yeah.
And it's this perfect little, I wish they kind of leaned into this more, where the aliens are looking at them because they're like, you're a threat to us. And the people who haven't turned yet are like, why are they together?
Yeah.
So like they get the same, for being weird and outsiders, they're getting the same vibe from the aliens and the humans.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff.
Yep.
I wish the movie like really dug into that, because it's like the whole idea is you will be happier when you're a unity, and the idea is to be weird is to be great, to be human.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that enough.
No, it doesn't. So they all pile into Zeke's car, all six of them, in
I
this tiny car.
I say, boy, 6 people in a 1970 Pontiac GTO,
Like,
that is an uncomfortable
that's a
ride.
coupe, right? There's only 2 doors.
It's not a coupe, but yeah, I guess technically it would be a coupe.
Okay.
It is only 2 doors.
It's only 2 doors. Like, they got 6 people in this. 4 people in the back.
It would be impossible to put a third person in the front seat without sticking something up into your body.
Right.
That console, it's probably stick shift. And so there are 4 people in the back of this 1970s.
All the girls.
Small car.
And
and Elijah Wood.
Elijah
The
Wood.
one thing is like everyone back there is tiny. I actually kept hitting pause on this terrible app I was trying to watch. Trying to see if there was actually 4 people back there. I think there are.
I think there might be actually too. So they take off, but the radio's suddenly dead. Like they can't even pick up stations from nearby towns. Like all of the radio's dead. Cops have put up roadblocks.
Yeah.
So they get away because they're trying to leave town. So they go to Zeke's house instead. His parents are in Europe, and he has this fancy science lab in his garage. He has
a mad scientist laboratory in his garage.
And then he just walks in, and there's just a gun on the counter. Just right there.
I said, intro, late second act gun.
Yep.
This was pre-Columbine.
Yes.
So we're just like...
Columbine's 2000?
No, it's 99.
99.
Okay.
So they're just like, high school students can have access to guns.
Well,
it's totally
Zeke's whole
fine.
thing... It's funny because Zeke is annoying as fuck because he's everything. He's a contradiction, he says at some point in this. But he does seem to be a little hardcore. Like, he has this gun and he's willing to use it.
He sells drugs, so...
Okay, this is where it's revealed that the scat is just crushed up caffeine pills.
I know.
He doesn't sell drugs.
I feel like that's what the movie is trying to tell us. Because everybody is a trope. Every single person in this movie is a trope. And so his trope is this hard ass.
It's trying to be, you think it's this, but he's really that. Mm-hmm. So it's like the slightest deeper trope. 1 level deeper.
Right.
And it isn't just caffeine pills around. I'm correcting myself.
And
household items or chemicals.
Yeah, household chemicals and caffeine pills. Yeah. And that's what scat is. So he kind of like gets the dried up parasite, cuts off a piece, and
he
feeds
has
it to his pet rat. Yeah. And then it takes over the rat. So then he breaks its neck to dissect the rat to see how it works.
So this is science. I like it.
Yeah,
he's
doing
the scientific...
He just doesn't care about that rat at all.
Oh, I mean, he says sorry, and it has a name. I can't remember what the rat's name is.
Look, at the end of the world, and also...
That's a line in this movie.
It seems like a pet rat. It would make sense, but it's right next to bubbling beakers and shit, so it's obviously a lab rat.
Yeah, it's a lab rat.
Which, why this fucking kid
probably
has
feeds his scat.
Lab rat?
Yeah, he probably feeds it his drugs. Anyways, I don't know. Who knows?
See if it dies.
So he dissects the rat. He figures out that the parasite needs a moist host, and the scat dries it out. In theory, per science fiction, if they kill the master, then they kill them all.
Why? Time out. That is such a jump in this movie.
I know.
They go from... It's all
and they would all go back to normal, too.
All one organism to being like, if we kill the master, everyone will be okay. Based off of what?
Magical realism?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all the characters just decide that this is a rule.
Every magical fantasy book, every science fiction book where you...
No, not everyone.
Kill the bad guy.
Like maybe some of them. Yeah. Also, they go immediately from kill the master, kill them all, to calling it a queen.
Yeah, they do.
Now suddenly it's
a queen.
Female, and they're calling it, we got to get the queen.
So they think it's like a bee.
Sort of, yeah.
Although if you kill a queen bee...
I mean, I think the
hive has to find a new queen.
Yeah, they make a new queen. They're always raising queens.
Anyway.
So they
The movie
realize
has
they
to
don't
end.
know if all of them are not aliens. And they start to turn on each other.
This is the redo of one of the best scenes in sci-fi history, the blood sample scene in John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where everyone is like, we need to test to
Yeah.
make sure everyone in this room is human.
Yep. And
It's so good. It reminds you that you should be watching The Thing, an infinitely better movie. But it's a fun little thing in a movie.
since they know that the scat dries it out, they decide everybody has to take scat to prove they're not aliens. Weirdly, like in the middle of this scene, a cab is pulling up outside.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does matter. Stan grabs the gun to force Zeke to take the drug. Well, actually, sorry, Elijah Wood has already taken the drug. So, and then
They start turning on, I just want to do a line
Yeah,
here because
sure.
they start turning on each other because they're like, you've been acting weird lately. You've been acting weird lately. Suddenly, Stan, you want to quit the team. That's where he's like, I'm not an alien. I'm discontent.
yes,
Great line.
it was a good line. But okay, so Elijah Wood takes the drug, and then Zeke's like, I'm not gonna take my own stash, and so Stan grabs the gun and
Which is a
enforces
wild
him.
thing to say.
I know. Zeke takes it, and then they just trade. Like Stan hands Zeke the gun, hold it on him while he does the drug.
It's so weird.
It's so
I
weird.
do like how the drug makes, like, they start
Giggling.
just losing it.
Yeah.
Everyone's laughing and falling apart and, like,
Yeah.
kind of holding their heads. That
So
makes
then-
it, like, an extra layer of, like, shit, there's a gun in here, and everyone's, like, getting high as
Yes,
fuck.
they are. So then Zeke hands it to Clea, and she's like, I'm not putting that shit up my nose. It's so tacky. And he's like, aliens are taking over the earth. Weigh it. And
Weigh it.
I love
That's-
that.
that's
Weigh
a
it.
good
That was a good line.
Josh Hartnett delivers that perfectly.
Yes.
Weigh it.
Weigh it.
It's very 90s.
It was so 90s. And so she does it. So down to Mary Beth and Delilah. And Mary Beth's like, no, I can't. I'm allergic. I can't take this. And he's like, you have to. So they make her. And he's like, you guys have to do it at the same time. Mary Beth does it. And
does
then
it.
Delilah freaks out and won't do
Turns around, and there's worms crawling.
Worms all over her face.
Under her skin.
So she ruins the lab. She like pushes everything over.
She destroys everything that
Yeah.
could make more stuff.
And then they're like, shoot her, and the boys won't shoot her. And then Stokely's like, I'll fucking shoot her, and grabs the gun and
just
starts
starts
chasing her.
boom, boom,
boom,
boom,
boom, boom. And she jumps in the cab that showed up. So obviously, because this worm thing is a hive mind, it knew to have a getaway car.
You're right.
It was important.
She literally could have run off into the
She
night,
could have.
and that would have
But
been
I
fine
like
for
the
the movie
idea. It's
also.
like it's really laying down the hive mind thing. So
Then why doesn't it bring 700 people to
don't
Zeke's lab and fucking turn them into...
because
Overpower
it's playing
them.
with them, and you know it.
I mean, fine.
It's playing with them.
I don't... Fine.
It's finding joy in trying to turn
We'll
them.
talk
so,
about it when we
yeah.
get there, but I don't see why. Go ahead.
Okay, so most of the stash of scat has been ruined, and they decide to go after the queen. They're suddenly calling it queen, as you said. So they go to the football game, where the only place that anybody would be on a Friday night in this town is at this football game.
And this is a wonderful, big set piece.
It is
of
straight up
fireworks
Friday Night
going
Lights.
off. It's
Yeah.
Friday Night Lights. It's
Everybody in
a
town is
neighboring team has come. It is a cast of hundreds.
Yeah.
It's a real high school football night.
Yeah.
And
And the
it looks
Hornets is this
Yeah.
team for this school, and they are brutalizing the other team.
And-
And the coach just stands there giggling and laughing and glee.
great. And while they knock people down, they're spitting worms into the
Yeah.
opposing team's face.
Yep, they're like all piling on and infecting. So yeah, it's not
So
great.
this is just a spreading of the contagion.
So the kids decide the principal is the queen because she is the principal. They just
Why?
decide because
Yeah,
she's
it's
the
so
most.
stupid.
She's the biggest authority figure that they know in their regular lives, I guess, and so she's the queen.
Also, what's very funny about this scene is the Hornets side are, as their team is brutalizing everybody, has signs that say "kill, kill,
Yes.
kill"
Yes,
on them,
it does. It says
which
kill.
is a little much.
All the violence in this movie is a little much.
So they think
The faculty knows something's up with those kids. Sees them creeping around.
the five of them are holed up in the gym.
In the
now,
gym. So
right?
they're in the gym. They all get back together after they were. Some of them went out to like scope out the game, and everybody else was in the gym. And now they're all back together in the gym. And they're saying that they found Drake. She's at the game. But then suddenly Miss Drake is behind them. And
Drake.
she's like,
Confirmed.
the gym is closed. You all have to come with me. But they decide to trap her with a volleyball net. And they hold a gun to her and force her to sniff the scat. And she's like, she won't take it. And the boys start to question if she's really infected. Like, she's really playing up, like, being a normal human, I guess. And then Zeke takes the gun and just shoots her in the fucking head.
Yeah.
He's
Stone
done with
cold.
the other two boys.
He just stone cold murders her.
Yeah.
Bullet in the head. And then
we see blood, like, just, it's all quiet. She's on the ground, blood seeping from her head. And they're like, oh shit, maybe we made a mistake. And then Miss Drake's body stands up and worms flood from her wound. They're just coming out of her head wound. Then Mary Beth runs and throws the remaining scat on her face. And she's like shaking every ounce out. Like she's making sure all the scat is on her.
The principal basically melts like a slug in salt.
Yeah,
just
basically. And then you can tell Zeke is worried that all the scat is gone.
Mary Beth went a little hard with it.
She did, yeah. They aren't sure if it worked or not. So they're like, well, Stan is like, I got to go and check and make sure.
Yeah, because
they look out the window and everybody's leaving.
If it's a Lost Boys ending, and Drake was it, everybody else should be fine now, according to their weird logic.
That's how it worked in Lost Boys. If they hadn't turned all the way, then they would go back to normal.
My blood is in your veins, Michael.
Right before Stan goes out, Zeke gives him a pen of scat.
Yeah, there's like just a handful of pens.
There's only a couple, like 2 or 3. That's it.
It has started raining, which is a
started raining.
There's a storm outside.
And Stokely kisses him, saying that if she dies or whatever, that she wanted to do that first. And
whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Like I said, nobody should be kissing in this movie.
Whatever. Yeah. So Stan goes out there. And the football team are just standing in the rain with tentacles coming out of their faces.
Yeah, they're just kind of
soaking up the rain. They're all just standing there in like a pyramid.
And it's weird because like when the lightning flashes, Robert Patrick's skin is like kind of translucent, and there you could see
all
like
the worms. Yeah,
not just worms, but he's got like a whole set of like teeth in there.
Yeah. Oh, because of like the little baby bug things.
Yeah, like the parasite. He's just got a full version of them, and it's cool and creepy. I wish there was more of it.
Well, so Stan comes back and he tries to get in, saying he's lost the drug, and they're like, "You have to take it." They give him the last pen,
right
under
the door.
They force him to take the drug to prove he isn't infected, but then he just pours it out. And then he spends some time trying to convince Stokely to open the door and how, like, they can be together and all that shit.
Yeah, this is good. This is like
how happy
basically
he is.
What he's like. Yeah. There is no pain. There is no fear. You will be beautiful and you will be wanted.
Yeah.
So that's like ostensibly giving outsiders everything they want in our society, and these aliens are offering it to them at the cost of their humanity.
Yeah. But they won't let him in. So Stan leaves, and they're out of the drugs. So the last 4 are trying to figure out what to do next, and Zeke thinks there's more scat in his car.
Right.
So he and Casey go out amongst the aliens to get it. And Casey's like, why do you need 2 of us to go get this? And he's like, one of us is a decoy.
Yeah. It's a fun thing with 2 of my favorite actors, Hartnett and Elijah Wood, running around. The parking lot is a labyrinth of buses.
Yeah.
They're all parked weird, so it's like, it's a set piece.
Yeah,
obviously, no one would park like this, but it's a cool little way.
Also, like, school buses don't park at school.
Well, if you're busing in people for a football game.
They've already left, right?
Shut up.
Okay.
you need well, no, they haven't already left because there's 2 football teams marching through them
That's
after
right.
them.
There is,
There's the entire, both sides of the football.
They've turned, and so the football teams are like armies.
Are like, marching after them through this labyrinth of buses.
Casey runs off as the decoy. He goes into a bus. Delilah finds him, and the football teams are surrounded the bus.
Yeah,
and Delilah's like on him, and they're trying to get in the back, and he goes out the roof. Which I don't know if that short boy can actually get through the roof, but
Okay. One, you could jump up on the seats and get up there,
fine.
and short people can be kids.
I'm a short person. I get it. So Zeke is like digging through his trunk and he can't find any more, and then Miss Burke shows up, which is the English teacher. Famke, yes. And she's flirting about she's come for the cherry flavor item, the cherry flavored item.
She's got a really cool tongue now.
It's like fork tongue or
like
something.
Tentacle tongue.
Zeke dashes into the car and she breaks through the passenger window, and he's like driving around while she's there wrestling, and she's got all sorts of tentacles coming out of her mouth. And then Zeke puts on his seatbelt. He's like fumbling to get his seatbelt on because he is planning on crashing this car, which he does, into a bus, and she flies out the window.
Her head.
Yes.
Then again.
Zeke has a couple of pens in his hand, and her head is like walking by on the tentacles.
Very much John Carpenter's a thing again.
I mean, it reminds me of Mars Attacks for some reason.
Yeah, but that is also after John Carpenter's a thing.
Yeah.
What's his name? Blair's head falls off,
and it's walking
makes
on
spider legs, and runs away.
But then her body and her head are trying to find each other, and she's putting it back on.
She puts her own head with the tentacles coming out of the neck back on.
Yeah, it's creepy.
And at the end of all of this, she will be a human.
Yeah,
a living human being.
Okay, so we're back in the gym, and Stokely and Mary Beth are alone, and they're having a little moment. And Mary Beth starts talking really pro-alien, like a lot, like trying to convince her it's a better thing. At first you're like, what's going on? And then you realize, Mary Beth is the alien.
Mary Beth outs herself and she becomes a big cool axolotl.
Yeah, so she punches Stokely in the face with a giant tentacle.
Oh yeah, both of her arms become
and then
tentacles.
she becomes this giant creature. The giant axolotl was much better in Fallout than this movie.
Agree. I mean, that was literally an axolotl.
But all those teeth on the inside, that was a good axolotl.
That was a fun show.
Yeah.
I like a big monster, and we got a big monster.
Yeah. So Casey, in the meantime, has also made it back inside, and Mary Beth, as a creature, is chasing Casey and Stokely, and they're running around a pool, but the creature's gone into the water, and it's like gaining on them because it's swimming, and they're running around the outside, and then they get to the other side, and the creature grabs Stokely and knocks her out as it pulls her into the pool.
Yeah, it's
she's bleeding, she's
brutal.
knocked out. Yeah.
Her face like hits that pool side and just splats blood. It's rough.
Yeah, but then Casey gets her out of the water, and they run into the locker room.
So during this whole thing, I love these shadow effects. There's a lot of stuff about I like when, little things are holding big monsters and you're like, how did all of that mass get in there? It distracts you with cool visuals so much you don't care.
Right.
When the axolotl's in the pool and swimming, it's like trails a shadow and then it becomes the girl again.
Yeah.
And then when she's naked walking into the locker room, there's just
tentacle
shadows everywhere.
It's very cool.
It's so neat looking.
Yeah, it is very cool. They did really well to say this person is more than a person.
Yeah, it's like magical realism at this point, so you just don't care.
You just don't care, yeah. So Mary Beth turns back to a naked human, walks out of the pool. Casey and Stokely are hiding in the locker room, and Zeke is come back inside. He's kind of hurt because he just got out of a car accident, and he's got some pens in his hand, and he's coming into the locker room. And Stokely and Mary Beth are both like, hey, she's infected, both at each other. And then Zeke's like, Mary Beth, why are you naked?
Yeah.
And she realizes she messed up. So,
and again, Kevin Williamson has never done full frontal nudity in a movie until he makes a joke about it in this movie and then makes this young actress be full frontal naked. It's
a long time, too. A long time, yeah. So Mary Beth tries to, do her villain talk, and then we find out also Stokely is infected.
Right.
And so then Casey grabs her and locks her up in the equipment cage. And Zeke forces Casey to take the drug to make sure he's clear as they're running away from the giant monster again. So then Zeke gets thrown over the lockers and knocked out, so Casey's the only one left. Mary Beth tries to convince Casey to join with her story about how she was on an alien world that was drying up, and she found this place, and she saw how everybody was in pain so much, and she just wanted to fix it. Yada, yada, yada.
It's a little long in the tooth at this point.
I've heard it enough by now. So Casey takes off running, and the monster chases.
And it's cool when Casey's running and the monster chases, the lockers are they're flying just at his heels, and it looks very cool.
Yeah, it does. And so Casey runs to the bleachers, and then he's waiting for the monster to get close because he's going to collapse the bleachers. So
did you guys have collapsible bleachers?
Yes.
Have you ever been under them and thought this would totally fucking crush me if they closed right now?
Of course. And then I remember that story about that girl who got crushed under it recently, in the last year or so, and she died. Oh. So, yeah.
This is every inch of that fear is happening. Yeah. So he's running through the bleachers, and they're closing as the monster's chasing
the monster's
him.
Chasing under the bleachers, and they're closing and closing. At the very end, the bleachers catch it, and then he stabs it in the eye with the remaining pens.
And says...
I didn't write down what he said. What did he say?
You wouldn't have liked it here anyway.
Oh, yeah, I did write down. I did.
It's a beautiful little...
You wouldn't have liked it here anyway.
His back he's sitting exhausted on the floor, just maybe 2 feet from the end of the bleachers. This huge monster is crushed there, and he's exhausted as it's dying and foaming, and he goes, you wouldn't have liked it here anyway.
We forgot also, as soon as he stabbed it, it sprayed worms at him, so they were, going into his face, too. So, he's screaming. As this monster is dying, he's screaming because these worms are digging into his face.
Yeah, it pukes, 5
15 monster worms are just, all over it.
It's a cool effect to have right at the end of your movie, Elijah Wood having his whole face just, worms coming in.
And then they all, fall out because the monster died. Then it's you wouldn't have liked it here anyway.
Thank God their hypothesis about this alien was
worked out, yeah. So the worms are all leaving. Casey lets Stokely out. And then the last jump scare in the movie, Zeke slams himself on the cage, and they both jump because they think there's another monster. And he's like, is it over?
I think I was asleep by then. And then I woke up with a title card that said 1 month later.
1 month later, yes. So Zeke is suddenly on the football team for some fucking reason. Mm-hmm. And Miss Burke is in the bleachers cheering him on.
So the teacher's now fucking him?
Obviously.
That's obviously what this implies.
Ethical. No, whatever. Stokely is wearing color. and dating Stan, a la Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club. Like,
Yeah,
she suddenly had, like,
it
it
is
was
very
100%,
obviously that.
like, the goth girl is now going to be wearing lavender and put her hair back from her face.
Okay,
I was so mad about
these
that.
These are my last notes. Zeke on team, fucking teacher, Stokes and Stan, Casey and Delilah, everyone gets kisses, blah, blah, blah.
Right, well, and, like, I guess Casey got to be on the cover of a bunch of magazines, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, there's a bunch of news.
Oh, and I said, Delilah, what? Things sure have changed, haven't they? That was the last line of the movie.
It sucks. It sucks.
It's like, at the end, I was like, okay, so are they trying to posit that, like, by bringing all these people together to fight adversity, that the Worm Queen got what she wanted anyways?
Oh,
If the Worm Queen had her way and gotten these kids, she would have paired them up this way. She would have made these people do these roles. And at the end of the day, they did them anyway, so, like...
Yeah, man, I don't remember this movie being this not fun.
Unfortunately...
This is a fun movie in my memory.
It was, me too.
And I like all of these actors.
Yeah.
I like the teachers.
Yeah.
I like the kids. I like everyone playing this stuff. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, what? So much can be cut out of this to the point of it shouldn't really
well, and to be
exist
fair,
at
like,
all.
Michael, we were the age of these kids in this movie when this movie came
Well,
out.
sure.
This was the world we lived in.
It's a very fun...
So, like, a lot of the things that bother us now didn't bother us then.
I don't know if it bothers me.
I mean...
It's just kind of a slog, and it was a fun thought experiment to be like, man, I really thought I was a Zeke, but it turns out I was a Casey.
I was a Casey too.
Right. That's why we're together. We're kissing the right people, not the weird people like Jordana Brewster.
That one just didn't make any sense for me.
No, none of it makes sense.
It was so forced. To be fair, like, it felt like the movie should have ended, and, like, maybe the studio came back and said, you need to wrap this up.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. This was fine.
It was fine.
I think it was fine.
Okay, how much did I push off watching this movie? I think I subconsciously knew this was going to be a slog, and I wanted to not do it again.
That's fine, but to be fair, you and I now push off watching this podcast movies for Saturday and Saturday
We do.
night.
Well, I don't push
every
off.
single time.
I do that on purpose because I want it to be close enough that it's fresh, but also far enough away to me to soak it in.
I know what you're saying about push off the movie. We were going to do this episodes earlier. And
Oh,
now
yeah.
we're doing it.
We were going to do it way earlier. Yeah.
And then the genius of Wormuary got into our heads. That's it, guys. We did Wormuary.
And it's the end of Wormuary.
It's the end.
Yeah.
We'll see you next year.
For another Wormuary. I love this.
Like every year, since time immemorial, we've always had Wormuary. It's always been here.
I think Michael's been taken by one of the worms.
You wouldn't have liked it here anyway. I was trying to find that's the wrong line.
I don't.
We don't like it here anyway. So all of that is done. The only thing we have left is, I don't know, do we have a question from John?
Do you think there's a remake that's better than the original, and which one?
100%.
Because you know how, like, Nosferatu just came out, which
Sure.
is like, that's kind of what we were talking about and thinking about.
I don't think the remake of Nosferatu is better than the original. I haven't seen it, but...
You refuse to see it because...
The original? The remake.
Original.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't think... Robert Eggers movies are very boring to me. Sorry, everybody. We were so confident.
I know,
And,
but I'm like,
and
what
now both of
movie?
us are, like, struggling.
The only thing that came to my mind were a bunch of remakes I didn't like. And then I thought about, because in Black Christmas, you guys talked about the newer Black Christmas, but that sort of took a different take on it, wasn't quite a remake. And then the only other ones I could think of were like Mean Girls, which I was like, I did not see that remake, but they made it a musical, and I said, absolutely not.
I know one for you, even though you haven't seen the original. But if you saw the original Little Shop of Horrors,
Little Shop of Horrors, agreed.
you would way love your
100%.
version better.
My movie definitely is Little Shop of Horrors.
It's a musical.
The 1980s
it's great.
musical.
It's got a bigger cast.
Rick Moranis.
I love Roger Corman's Dick Miller Little Shop of Horrors. I think it's fucking great. But
Sure. I mean, come on. The Thing. It's a remake. The Thing is a remake, and it's fantastic.
Technically,
it is a fucking remake.
It was the OG was A Thing from Another World.
Yeah.
Shortened to The Thing. If we're counting that, it's one of the best fucking horror movies ever made.
I would count it.
Then yeah, The Thing is it.
The only other one I could think of was like Dune. I've only
never
seen
seen
the
it.
so many
I've only
times.
seen the first like the 80s Dune movie like once, and it was a long time ago.
R.I.P. David Lynch.
Yes.
Yes. Bye.
And I didn't remember it a lot, but I felt like it was just the craziest thing. It kind of scared me too because I was too little to be watching it. But I know that there are people who are really into the Dune books.
Lord knows I know people who are into the Dune
and
books.
What they have said
Inscrutable.
is that nobody liked the 80s Dune movie because it like compressed everything down and it like went so quickly and it was just really bad. And I was like, well, I have seen the remake, at least the first part of the Dune movie, and I was like, that thing takes forever.
Oh my God. I watched like an hour.
I was like, maybe people who love the Dune books love these new ones because it goes, but I was like, this movie. And then when I found out there was a second part, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, basically, from what I understand, is where the compression happens in Lynch's Dune movie is where the first movie stops. So they gave all of that space for the second Dune movie. But I don't like anything Dune. It just seems like you're on a
What about the Blob?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah. It can be argued that also Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Jeff Goldblum and Donald Sutherland one is better. It's at least more interesting. I like both of them just the same.
It was a great movie. I like that.
Which one? The Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah.
Have you seen the Fred McMurray one?
I have not.
I don't know I think that's his name.
To be fair, I haven't seen many of these originals.
It is a very, very veiled screaming about communism is taking over America type stuff.
Sure.
But they do have a place called the Hot Dog Show in it, which is a cool hot dog vendor, and I love it. I love a place called the Hot Dog Show. If we're talking about the Steve McQueen, The Blob, that is boring. The 1985 The Blob we're doing on this show because it's fucking awesome. So yeah, there's
lots.
There's lots.
This is just horror. We're not even got out of horror.
I don't watch anything but horror.
That's not true.
I don't know what you're talking about. I think we answered it.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap this one up.
I think so.
All right.
All right. You have just experienced another episode of the Creature Popcast. I want to thank our producer, Jamie. You can find her at cherrystreetstudios.com or cherry_street_studios on Instagram. She makes us sound great. You would not believe the garbage we say on this podcast. And Jamie works wonders. Lindsay doesn't even speak English. It's crazy, the magic that Jamie pulls off. Thanks to Kevin MacLeod for all of our music. All of our art is made by me and Lindsay. You can see all of that and our episodes and our stickers and our t-shirts and goatee wax at creaturepop.com. Until next time, go to bed, John.
Bye, John.